Welcome, everybody. I am Astara, the publisher and CEO of Flower of Life Press, and I'm so happy to be here today with three of our featured authors in the Turning Point series. This is Volume 1, Empowering Stories to Activate the Divine Feminine Within, and I'm joined today by Cydia Smith and Lindsay Martin Ellis and Laura O'Neill. Welcome, sisters.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank
So
you.
glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
I am just so excited because this book, which features 16 voices of feminine leaders, is really anchored in by these voices here. Lara and Lindsay and Cydia are three pillars of this project and of this process. And so it makes me so thrilled to do these kinds of projects together because we can really feel the power of our oneness and the collective voice of sharing our stories, as well as the individual transformation that happens when we say yes to, facing our soul through our writing and then being willing to share it with the world. So our goal with this book, our vision, is to just continue to share the sacred stories of women's voices that have been suppressed for eons and are now emerging, and we find ourselves in this place of history where we can be free and speak freely. And we want to take advantage of that and be able to practice for ourselves and for all of us how to stand in our power, how to hold our sovereign truth and self-confidence as we do so that we can do our part in creating a loving environment and a loving world for our future, for the future kids, grandkids, and loved ones. So I'd like to start today just by inviting each of you to share a little bit about your journey and why. What was it that allowed you to say yes to being part of a collection of women's stories? So, Cydia, would you like to share with us what that yes was all about for you? What do you think propelled you into this journey?
Well, I think there are an assortment of reasons, but the main one for me was that this is a 7-year. 2023 is 7. And it reduces down in numerology to 7. I will be 77 this year. So these are important aspects for me. I live in apartment number 7. My street address reduces down to 7. So it just seemed like this was the important time for me to tell how I had begun my journey, or what my life's journey had been all about. Because I really do believe that we have a responsibility to make our lives mean something, not for other people necessarily, but for ourselves, to figure out certain turning points or events that make our lives understood by us, not by anybody else, but by us. It's sort of like each one of these little gems, the turning point or whatever, becomes a pearl of great price, if you want to put it that way, on a necklace that you wind up wrapping around your neck as something that sort of like a mala that gives you an opportunity to see, well, I was here when this happened. I remember that. What does it mean? So all of these things are part of how I was able to sort of weave, my tapestry. And the 7 just sort of popped up all of a sudden. I mean, when I moved into this building, and this is the original building that I've lived in for many, many years. And it was where the Institute for Hermetic Philosophy was. So I happened to get an apartment in this building. They've moved somewhere else or whatever, it doesn't matter. But I felt compelled to stay here because it was just 7, and it meant something to me to be in what I consider to be a spiritual place. Like the number 7 is destiny and luck and all of these things, and a spiritual awakening. And that's why I wanted to write this now, so that I could sort of come into a blossoming in my 77th year. My birthday is not until August, but I just wanted to have certain things in place when that happened so that I could live out the rest of this year in the wonderful master number of 77 and see what that holds for me. I think it's a marvelous space to be in. And that's why I wanted to tell my story. And it's about all of these little things that happened. The being that was at the foot of my bed that woke me up and said, "You must stay here," when everybody thought I was dying. And the other thing, seeing what I thought was Sputnik in the air and finding out, from my parents, that couldn't possibly be Sputnik. I mean, you wouldn't be able to see Sputnik. And then Sputnik happened in 1957, I think, and I was 11. And but I remember that, and I said, well, it wasn't an airplane. Well, what was it? So it was all of this, extraterrestrial or whatever it is stuff is sort of in through my life too. It's part of my journey that I didn't share with anyone. I just sort of kept these things to myself and tried to figure out what does it mean, where am I going with all of this? And being part of this group that I was part of for 20 years, we had to tell our life story. You do from 1 to 7. You have to write the story down and then read it to everybody. And then you had to go from 7 to 14. I mean, we did all of these things, and then we had to go back and do it again. It was part of the process of, I don't know, I guess not just discovering who you were, but also you begin to create yourself too as part of this process. So it's been a really wild ride, and there have been a lot of other experiences that, of course, I could not share in the amount of words that I was allotted, but I have other things that are coming as part of my I don't know, I guess exposure. That sounds
Yeah, I'm thinking legacy.
part of what I want to share, because
Yeah.
I'm not a person who's famous or anything like that, but I think each one of us has gifts that we impart to others, knowingly or unknowingly, and that our lives each have a purpose and a trajectory that we can not only just follow, but we can also create ourselves. So that's part of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Sidya, for sharing that. And I'm really feeling your trust, how trust has grown inside of you over the years to listen and to make meaning from your experience. And that serves you in order to put the pieces of the puzzle of your life together. And it serves us so much to just witness you and to know that we can do that too.
Yes.
And that we can get to a place in our lives where we can really manifest and really be anchored in our creation as
That's
we
the
go.
whole point.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true. It's the whole point, the sharing. It's sort of like, this was my journey, and I did this for 40 days and 40 nights or whatever to get my answer. And I think there's a formula. There most definitely is a formula. And the whole concept of being scientific about what you're trying to achieve is really necessary. It's not like you can't just like boom and this is what happens to you. Maybe when you get to a certain point you can go boom and something great happens, but you do have to be very conscious, at least for me, I should say, very conscious about what your intention is, what your purpose is, and what you wish to achieve. That is what I was trying to accomplish, and screaming, tell me, what is the meaning of this existence, and why are we here, and what do I owe, my life? Am I just to be this pawn, or am I able to put myself on a trajectory so that I can determine whether or not, if you believe in the wheel of reincarnation, whether or not I can come back on this wheel, or if I do come back, I'm going to be at a higher level. I don't intend to remain one of those who wanders aimlessly throughout, an existence, only to reach a certain time like I am now, 77, and suddenly, oh yeah, there is a purpose, that kind of thing. So anyway.
Well, that's what real feminine leadership is, Sidya. And thank you for embodying that for the rest of us, and sharing your stories. And it just gives me so much hope for our future turning points, for knowing that as our life continues to evolve, that we can be a player in our
Yeah.
choices, and we can be really present and in our seeking. So
Mhm.
really, thank you, sister, for sharing.
And I am so grateful for this opportunity. It's been a marvelous ride, and to be among such wonderful, wonderful women to experience all of this together. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Astara.
Thank you. Oof. So Laura, for you, how has your life changed, and what has happened since you decided to share your story publicly through this project?
So I mean, it's been an incredible process all along, even from the beginning. And I just like to put in the work and the time, and then to see it come to fruition was just so rewarding, even though simple. Like, sure, you start a project and you're supposed to finish it, but there was something very beautiful about how it came together after we were all working together for a while. Um, and just having the community of support was really important, because it is like putting your message out there is an exercise in vulnerability and courage. I was surprised, like, how when it was going to be published, or when it was coming out, I was surprised how, like, nervous I felt all of a sudden. And I mean, it was good, it was a good thing. It was a good nervousness. And I really do use the word like exercise in vulnerability, because I think it is an exercise. It is a practice to feel that way. But to be like having the community of women with me in that, and witnessing their own process around it was just so rewarding. And having this community of women now forever that I feel connected to was so rewarding. As well as just after putting it out there and hearing what readers have to say about the experience of reading the book, my chapter and the whole book and everybody's amazing chapters was just really incredible, because you just like, okay, it's out there. Um, is this affecting people? Is this reaching people? What do they think?
Yes.
And getting that feedback was really beautiful. As well, and scary, because and I tried to remove my ego and tried to remove my expectations of like what people would think or want or say, which was all, once again, an exercise in being, stepping out there in the world, and expressing yourself, and sending your message that you want to send. So I feel like it came at a time, the opportunity arose at a time where my youngest were about to go to college. So it was this big resounding yes of, this is a time of transition for me. I really felt that, where I've been a mother for so long, or with children at home for so long, and a caregiver just providing care, day by day, patient by patient. And I felt this longing to, okay, this is my time to reach a bigger audience, or express my truth and my realities and my hopes for the future to a broader audience, like more of a global expression, as opposed to just day in and day out of my little world, which was important when I was doing it. But it was like this opportunity to grow into my own feminine leadership, and it was such a great opportunity. So I mean, thank you. It was incredible. And then most importantly, and then I had some opportunities. I did get a podcast out of it, which was great, and I hope to do some more. And then this one, of course, is fun to connect with you all again. But I would say the biggest thing that it really has done for me too is just given me this new inspiration and like juice almost to continue my work, to finish the book that I had been working on and off for a couple of years. Gave me this new commitment, this new sort of discipline, to continue forth with what we were doing already, and to expand on what I want to say and what I want to do and the audience I want to reach, and to actually birth that out into the world. So I'm working on that now.
Mm,
And it's fun because now I can say I'm a published author. So
yeah.
that's really, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
So when it comes to your, Laura, you are a caregiver, you're a nurse practitioner in private practice, and you bring forward this beautiful blend of allopathic and traditional and holistic wellness for your patients and for your life. And I know a big part of your message is basically disrupting the medical matrix and being able to say what's working and what's not working from the front lines, really.
Right. Right.
And so that bigger sort of meta message of shifting people's perspectives and being able to own their power around their own health, is so beautiful. So I just really witness you and putting that stake in the ground as
Hmm.
part of your work, and
Yeah.
that this process has helped you to feel like, okay, this is not going to be, there are no obstacles. This is where I'm headed.
Right. Yeah. Like I'm doing this and I'm not just doing it in my small corner anymore. I want, like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, this
yeah,
is, important and incredible. And even like, you had spoken, I forgot the word you used, but, about, health autonomy, or I forgot the word you just used, but and also this opportunity came at a time where women's voices and women's bodily autonomy was being questioned. And I feel like, it was another reason why I felt this like resounding yes of I'm going to express myself. I feel the need to express myself, for myself and my young daughters, my young women who are entering into this world,
yeah,
because it comes back to the type of healthcare that I think is important, that your patient, the person, needs to have a voice. They're just as important in the health journey as you know the provider or the person that's helping them, whether it's a coach or a nurse or a doctor or a mental health therapist. But it's a partnership, and that sort of old way of doctors knows best, or this is the way that you do it, and if you do something else you're weird and you're stupid, is like, it's so toxic.
The-
And
sorry, the
no.
words that I'm remembering from your chapter are feminine reclamation.
Hmm.
And that is really at the heart of what you're showing us, is how to reclaim our femininity. We are the body, right? We are the
Right.
voice of this body. And so that's really, really powerful to be able to plant those seeds of that embodied power for each person. Like, I have a say in my own health, and I'm not going to just give my power over to the provider unless I want to be in partnership with my provider. That's too what you said in your
Yeah, exactly.
chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the feminine reclamation, it's a matriarch, or it's a maternal type of care, moving away from that patriarchal type of care that I feel is really important to bring to the table, or to come back to the way that it used to be a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
um is my
Mm,
biggest message. Yeah, so thank you for helping me
mm.
define that
I
too.
really feel too, the goddess of compassion energy is a huge part of who you are and what you bring, is that knowing of feminine based well-being is a lot about compassion for self,
Mhm.
right? For the body, for our experiences, and for pain, and for being able to deal with pain in life and suffering. So thank you so much, Laura, for your contribution.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Speaking of pain, Lindsay, I know that your journey has been one of ups and downs and suffering and finding your way through many different turning points in your life. So I'm wondering if you could share with us a little bit about how you've learned to embrace the pain as part of the sacredness of our evolution.
Mm. Yeah, and I'm feeling so connected to you all. This is the beauty of, we've come together so many times, and I've read your chapters, and I like so much of even what I wrote in my turning point story has a deep connection with both of what Lara and Cydia shared. And this is the power of sharing vulnerably. And what I found, right, through these 7-year cycles, which for the purposes of simplifying things, I in my chapter, it was every decade of my life going through a massive initiation that created a lot of suffering because I didn't know what I didn't know at the time, and I was learning. And the suffering felt like this hamster wheel that life always needs to be hard and just in this victim consciousness. And what I found just through my own experience and my own exploration and just continuing on this path of wanting to know why and who am I and what happens when we leave this earth plane, I discovered the necessary sacredness of pain, which is what catalyzes us into our evolution. And the moment I started to surrender into that, everything opened up for me. So suffering, it feels hard. It feels hopeless. It feels like the zest for life is completely zapped from our field. And I know we can all relate to that. And I feel pain all the time. I feel pain actually more than I ever have because I don't suppress it anymore and I don't pretend that it's not there. And that's actually what's allowing me to open up and expand in such deeper ways. And that's why I felt called to self-express in even deeper ways through this experiment of becoming a published author. And same thing, like the fear that came through of like, oh my gosh, my family doesn't even know this, my husband doesn't even know all of this, my like those people in my life, and just the lightness that continues to unfurl as we continue to share that we're no different, right? Like all of our experiences here right now in this room on this Zoom line in this beautiful portal, we come from different walks of life, yet it's always the same feeling. It's always the same initiations. It's always the same dark nights of the soul. It's always the same hurt, right? Like we all know what it feels like to be abandoned, even though we all have so many varying degrees of how that's happened in our life. And so it felt important for me to support people in just starting to take the first step of what would it look like to embrace this painful experience? What would it look like to be in this, even for a minute, before trying to shut it down? And inspiring others to, release the suffering, the perpetual suffering that I feel so many of us as a humanity are experiencing on this planet. So thank you for the opportunity, Astara.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And what you're saying just is so resonant for me right now because I think really the crux of where I am in my journey is all about learning to stay with whatever the feelings are. And as they've become unearthed and as we learn to be more comfortable with discomfort, to be okay with that like, oh, I might be feeling more now. I might be feeling more pain now because I'm no longer stuffing it down. I'm no longer suppressing it. I'm rewiring myself. So how have you been able to sustain? What are some of the practices that you share in your work as an embodiment coach and a feminine leader to help us learn how to sustain that place of equanimity where we can go into the depths of the dark and also into the joy and light? But how do we how does that all even out?
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Well, I think the first reclamation and realization is that, right, if we're kind of stuffing everything down, it kind of keeps us just status quo. Like we don't get to feel the bliss and the ecstasy and the pleasure and the joy and the fun and the presence, right? If we're stuffing down all of those other emotions. So once I started to truly just claim, okay, if I can be with this shame, if I can be with this anxiety, that means that the universe, the language of the universe is energy, right? So that means that I, as a universal law, get to have that direct proportional expansive resonance coming back to me once I can be with it and feel it. And it's working. So that's the first piece. I love to let the mind know, hey, this is possible. I'm living it, right? Science is starting to prove what's happening in the quantum, which is a beautiful thing, right? For those of us that don't want to let the mind, fall to the wayside. But truly, the first step that I think is most important as a practice is to simply pause, to take a deep breath, put your hands on your body, because that just ritualizes the experience that you're here in this moment, in this body at this time. And just ask yourself, what do I need? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? And giving yourself even just one small piece of nourishment or one small piece of what would it look like to just put a hoodie on and lay on the couch for 1 minute while I'm feeling shame and see what opens up. What would it look like if I just clenched my fists in frustration for 20 seconds and released it and see what moves through? So that's it, right? It's like when we feel the pain, it moves. That's all that it's there for. Emotions and pain are there to show us this gets to move. So the moment we give that to ourselves, it moves. Sometimes it may be a catastrophic move and it's like, whoa. Other times it might be minute. Sometimes it may take minutes, other times days and months. But you'll start to notice that there's evidence the more that you practice, and there's patterns that start to come through for your own individuated experience as to when I feel this emotion, this is actually what my body's asking for. Can I give that to myself so that I can then transmute that, change my state, feel better, alchemize that into something more meaningful?
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you for that answer. It's really about honoring the body as the tool of wisdom, right? As holding all of the information for us, that the mind, we don't have to, you know, excavate the mind day and night in order to feel okay, that the body can do it for us. I love that. So there's an element of surrender and also that presence that's needed so that we can catch ourselves in the feeling and grab it and say, okay, I'm going to feel this, and make that conscious choice in that moment. Yeah. Thank you so much, Lindsay. And how has life changed for you since the journey of becoming a published author? Have you noticed anything shifting in your own feminine leadership?
Yeah, well, if you're watching this on video, you'll see 2 acrylic paintings in the background that were birthed post being a published author. And, I had the same fears that Laura expressed, deep rooted fears, to the point where just me speaking these words, I can feel like the bigness of the suppression of women's voices ancestrally, and how deep rooted this fear is to truly speak up. And when you just do it and you claim it and you're surrounded by a supportive community like Astara and her beautiful publishing company, right, in this container of women, this is how we do it. We do it together in sisterhood when we're having those moments. And now that I'm on the other side, I feel so liberated. And I started a podcast. It's like everything kind of started at the same time for me. Like I just need to be on social media more. I just need to go live with no makeup on and just share what's on my heart. I just need to write the dang book. I just need to start talking. And because of that, the density that's cleared in my body has opened me up for so much more self-expression, things that I used to do when I was a kid, which was acrylic painting that I stopped for, gosh, over 25 years, that I just started back up again. And so I'm playing more, and I'm also noticing that my business is thriving. Like, there's so much more capacity that I have to do things that I love and also to serve. And I imagine that's what we want as humans, right? Like, I want to do what I love in my work, within my relationships, and do the things that nourish me. And this process helped me just clear all that fear that was still there of just being myself. And there's a simplification that happens of like, oh yeah, I don't have to share everything with everyone, but people know who I am when I walk into a room now, right? It's like they're going to get me everywhere. And that feels so much better, because I was like, okay, I'm only going to do this here with these women, and I'm only going to do this with my family, and I'm only going to do this with my husband. And that's exhausting. So that has been honestly probably one of the greatest gifts, is I just feel like I have more space to be me.
Oh, witnessing you. That is so beautiful. And it's true. Your radiance is magnetic. And I love that you're just allowing yourself to be your radiant self in all of these situations, because you now know how to manage your feelings and allow the feelings, and also co-create with them to be able to stay there and shine. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for sharing your truth with the world via your podcast. And I'm so excited for this session, this conversation today, to be shared with your community as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Sidya, I have another question for you. Your radiance, your fullest, truest self is so apparent to all of us through who you are, through your writing, and through your life story. And I know that you are an actress, and that was a big part of your earlier years. And so I'm curious, how has your own sense of self shifted through your journey from perhaps playing somebody else or trying on these different personas, and then showing up as you, the real Sidya? Is there anything there? I'm just curious.
Well, I think it's a good question, because having studied acting and having done certain things in acting, but never going all the way or whatever, because first of all, I didn't have support. My father was definitely against it, because he knew that Hollywood and all of that was horrible, but he did support me in terms of, he said, be a flight attendant, and be an actress or a leading lady in the air, because he said, you're a leading lady, and those are not the parts you will play. They will give you parts that are not you. And I said, well, that's what it's all about, acting. And he said, yeah, but that's not what you want. He said, so be a leading lady in the air. And that's what I did. And so I traveled. I was invited all over the world by different people, and I experienced a lot of different things that expanded, first of all, my view of the world, my world. It just opened up tremendously. And I think I wrote in my piece that I wanted the world to become my backdrop, not just the little insulated community where I was, with family and even with my roommates and friends like that. I wanted it to be grander. And so there were instances where I was discovering myself too as a flight attendant, because all of a sudden I did everything. I was number one. I made all the announcements. I did everything. I worked in first class. I did all of these things that sort of helped me to develop my skill as myself. Who am I really? And I did a lot of reading, and all of these things, of course, helped to expose me to the world in a way that allowed me to be free. I mean, I did a lot of things that my father and mother were aghast at some of the things that I did and the places that I went and things like that. But I think what really helped me sort of focus more on writing or whatever was when my father was dying in New Mexico, and I couldn't go to be with him because I had hurt my knee and I couldn't walk or whatever. And my sister went in September, my brother went in October, whatever, and I was supposed to go in December, and I couldn't go. And I spent that whole time up until his memorial, which was not until August of the next year, writing about his life and what he had done as a Black man to help us to move into another arena. Because if we had lived in Michigan, it would have been a terrible scenario for our family. So we moved to Arizona. He moved us across country during a time where it was very dangerous for people, Black people, to be traveling across country. We went across country. We did all of these things. And of course, as children, you don't really think about the danger or anything. You're just, doing this. And my brother and sister and I were all together recently, and we talked about, do you remember all these things that we did? We used to sing in the car, all of the songs we learned in elementary school and things like that. And all of those things came back to me as I was putting together my father's life. It turned out to be an 18-page memorial to him. And from the time he was a child, when he was born, all of these things. And then his children, his wives, my father had, married my mother, and with my mother, he had the three of us. But after my mom died, he married someone else for 20 years. She divorced him because she no longer needed a father. And then he married someone else who, we're all in the same age bracket, the women that he married. So we're all very good friends. But it was all, I can see the process of helping me to become. As an actress, you do things that you learn in acting class that help you in certain situations where you need to be on, and I did those things, and I thought, well, I like that aspect of my personality, that I'm able to do these things, but I don't want it to be an act. I want it to be me. I want it to be who I am. So they sort of became absorbed into my persona so that I can go out into the world and be a certain way and be comfortable and know that I'm not pretending. And I think that being, learning these skills that I did learn, I did say that I studied the things, excuse me, that made me happy. I studied all of the things that I wanted to study. And it's not that I eschew, school or college degrees or anything like that. It's just at the time, for me, it wasn't possible, but I knew I was going to educate myself, like I told my father. And from learning things about Queen Elizabeth, I saw a film about Queen Elizabeth I with Betty Davis and Errol Flynn or something. And all of a sudden, I started reading about Queen Elizabeth I in England and all of these things. And from there, so many other avenues opened up, John Dee and all of it was fascinating to me as I go back over my life to see how much I allowed myself to just learn stuff and apply it to my life now and continuously, I guess. And so when we buried my father, there was a memorial service for him in New Mexico. And the book that I call it a book, it's not really a book, it's just a brochure, 18 pages or whatever. And they were all astonished, these people, that this is usually it's just a page. And I said, well, I'm not usual, I didn't mean it that way, but I said, my father's life is so much more than one, paragraph or a couple of photographs or whatever. It's an odyssey for him that created another odyssey for us that was his legacy. We are his legacy, and so I wanted to show how he had created that legacy for each of his children. And that sort of helped me too in creating and remembering the story that I had suppressed for a long time about the things that had happened to me, because in the the program that I was involved in, the Institute for Hermetic Philosophy, you were sort of discouraged from sharing so much with your family about what you were doing. And that sort of isolated me from them for a long time. But gradually I began to take my life back because I began to understand I'm not really interested in staying. I said, you can be in a school of whatever school you're in for a long time, but there comes a time where you have to graduate, and you graduate and you leave and you do something else. And there are people that are still there. And I think not that I, have anything horrible to say about them, but I just feel like it was time for me to step off into something else. And all of the skills that I had, all of the skills that I developed while working there are things that have made me so grateful that I was able to open up. I mean, I did all kinds of things for the school, wrote their brochures, did all kinds of things that they didn't know that I had the capacity to do, and neither did I. And then at the colleges that I worked for, all of a sudden I was planning events and, doing all kinds of things that allowed me to grow and use those skills, as you asked me about being an actress, to just say, of course we can do this. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
I remember the first time, and this is my last story. The first time was a test that I had to do for about 300 people. And I said, I don't know how to do that. How am I going to do that? And then I said, how can I section them off so they'll know which section they're to sit in for the different people? So in the auditorium, I said, it's the sun, the moon, and the stars. So this section, your ticket says that you're in the sun. This section says that you're in the moon, and this section that says that you're in the stars. And the president came to the testing because it was a test for nurses. And he said, my goodness, I didn't know we were in heaven, because all of these people were in different sections. And it was a wonderful opportunity for me to realize that I had the capacity just to do things and not worry about what other people thought about it, So I don't know if that's helpful in answering your
yes.
question.
Yes, that is such a core skill that all of us as feminine leaders and women who are ready to move beyond just the tiny bubble of self-centric life and into more of a connected collective purpose and experience is that willingness to be ourselves, to really let go of needing that external validation. And so so thank you for bringing that up, because that people pleasing part is something that we have to rewire when we are willing to share our story publicly, right? Because some people are going to love it and some people won't, and that's okay. And so, Laura, this is the final question for Laura. How have you been able to love yourself through anybody not liking you stepping into your power, not liking you speaking up, sharing your truth? How have you been able to practice holding that pillar of strength and letting go of needing to people please and not crumble?
Wow, that's a really good question. And one that I constantly, am working on, coming back to finding that strength. And I think somebody touched on this earlier. What it comes down to is I really do truly believe that we all are here for a particular, gift. We all have something to share. We all have a gift, all of us, whatever it is. And so, not everybody may like that gift, I guess, or it's more about, I think, people's processes and where they are in their own journey. And what you are saying may not be where they are at that time, and that's okay. Maybe it will be another time. Maybe it will have a little bit of a seed for them if they're not really able to hear it at that time, but will be helpful to them in their future, or maybe not ever, and that's okay. But just reminding that I'm here for a reason. I have particular gifts and talents, and I'm going to share that into the world from a place of love and authenticity. just keep reminding, because that people pleasing thing, that especially women, just, wanting everybody to like them, wanting everybody to, not create strife, not create conflict, is hard to overcome. So just that constant reminding of, it's okay. It's okay. And my gifts are valuable, and as long as it's coming from a place of love and truth, that it's okay.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You're right. It's that intention and the integrity of having a pure intention, and then
Yes.
doing our thing and holding compassion for the other person's autonomy, right? We don't want to force them to like
Right.
us because they're autonomous beings. We honor each other's autonomy and sovereignty. And
Right.
so it's not about controlling to get everybody to see it our way, but it's just about being willing to put it out there for those seeds, I think, to land where they're meant to land and for who they're meant to land at what time. So that's really profound. Thank you for sharing that.
Good question.
Lindsay, do you have anything you want to share about that before we end today, about just staying on track with your radiant light, knowing that not everybody's going to love it?
Yeah, I've been receiving a lot of that medicine as of late for myself, right? Just detaching from the need to be right and noticing where, right, that I preach that we, it's like I believe and I preach that we all get to have our own individuated experience. Yet when we're in it, it's so challenging when it's very clear that others are operating from their wound and projections and, their trauma, their pain body response. And there's that piece that keeps coming back to, there is no hierarchy that really supports me, right? Like, I don't know anything more than anybody else. I'm just doing my best through my own lived experience. And I believe that we all kind of are woven together as this tapestry of one true source. So that's truly helped me surrender and dissolve that people need to understand me and that people need to get it and that I need to do anything for anybody else, because that's a lot of responsibility that I don't want to have. So now it's like, okay, I'm one small piece of the nearly 8 billion people on the planet, just like everybody else is, and we're all playing our role. And there's something that somebody else gets to teach me through their own lived experience and through their puzzle piece of what we're all co-creating here. And so I think it takes a lot of the pressure off, and it also brings us back into a place of humility that I don't want to claim to know anything more than anybody else. All I can do is share what's supporting me, and in hopes that it could inspire and support other people to be that for them, to do that for themselves, to share what's alive for them. And oh my gosh, I just envision this world of what our world would look like if we could all allow people to discover that for themselves. That's what I'm, excited about for the new paradigm that we're continuing to step into.
Oh, that's so perfect. And I was really seeing the puzzle. I'm a puzzle person. I love to do jigsaw puzzles. And it really is that we are each a unique piece of the puzzle, and we just can snap into place, and we get to be free, and we get to be part of the whole. And so that was a beautiful metaphor. And the other piece that it reminded me of was a lot of women that I work with and engage with are feeling this pressure to have to do it all and save the world, where it becomes too much of a burden, and then we're crushed by the weight of that. And so almost like being able to take off that pressure to have to save the world and just be our one unique puzzle piece as part of the jigsaw puzzle, 8 billion pieces, and let that free us. Yet we're still doing our part from that place of love and integrity. So yeah, so great. We could talk for hours. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your gifts and your wisdom and your courage, for being willing to share your story and be vulnerable and face any kinds of external responses so beautifully. And I just really am so grateful that I've been able to spend this time with you. And how about each of you contribute one word as we close? What is one word that you would like to leave with our listeners?
Transformation.
Transformation. Thank you, Sidya.
Say faith.
Faith. Thank you, Laura.
Wholeness.
Wholeness. Thank you, Lindsay. And I will end with gratitude. Have a beautiful day, everybody. And if you have not yet purchased Turning Point Story Volume 1, you can find it on Amazon and where all books are sold. Have a beautiful day.